Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, January 11th, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, we are a news podcast, which means that sometimes, and I mean sometimes, we do try to watch our language, but sometimes words do fly at the same time, guys. There may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, but viewer discretion is advised. So, how do we start off the second week of 2023? Second week of 2023. Sorry, it feels like it's already been a month. It feels like 2 months have passed, and really it's only been a week and a half. But how do we start off this midweek? Well, I figured, with everything going on, we need some positivity. And although this may not be something that affects us altogether, but in the world of sports, it is always good to hear great things, especially with this young man who had a horrendous Monday Night Football incident where, again, he collapsed on the field. But we do have good news that I'm happy to report tonight.
To the index, and Buffalo Bills star Damar Hamlin signaling he may be going home soon. It was just a little more than a week now that he collapsed on that field. Moved from Cincinnati to Buffalo. He now expects to be released from the hospital in Buffalo in the next 24 to 48 hours. Hamlin tweeting, not home quite just yet, still doing and passing a bunch of tests. Special thank you to Buffalo General. It's been nothing but love since arrival. To the index, and
So yes, if you don't know who that gentleman is, he is Damar Hamlin, who again was playing in the Buffalo Bills game last Monday Night Football, where he did, after a hit, did collapse. Come to find out, the man had a heart attack, was resuscitated on the field, was resuscitated on the way to the hospital. Thankfully, still with us, and through a lot of love, encouragement, thoughts, and prayers, the man is now getting to be where he can go home to finish his recovery. It was just good because that was literally a time that has never been heard of on Monday Night Football. Now, again, with sports, things do happen, injuries, broken arms, broken legs, things of that nature, but I think for the longest time, for the first time we've ever seen something of that magnitude happen to where it stops everything, to where, the game doesn't matter, life matters. But thankfully, he has pulled through and is on his way to recovery, so we wish him nothing more than the best. But again, some positive news, because we're about to wade through a lot of stupid. What I mean by stupid is, well, Republicans, because number one, we found out that after Kevin McCarthy, who is now the House Speaker, because again, Republicans did win the House back in the midterms, although it took him nearly 15 tries. I say nearly 15 because we really wasn't sure about the 14th. But if there's anything you can say, if at first you don't succeed, bully people, especially the 20 that were against him, into voting for him without, because he gave up a lot. And what I mean by a lot, he gave up a lot to be the speaker, which we will cover in another podcast. But anyway, I do want to start off with the wave of stupid. Most importantly, former press secretary, who was former press secretary for Donald Trump, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who unfortunately did win the governorship of Arkansas, says a lot, has sat there and said that she wants to focus on education reform. Now, anybody who's ever heard Sarah Sanders speak, Sarah Sanders talk, and pretty much lie and BS her way through every Trump press conference should be a little concerned. Why? Because every Republican, especially before they actually took power in office, were all screaming the same thing. This word indoctrination. They didn't want CRT to be taught to schools. They didn't want actual American history to be taught to schools. Why? Because certain white folks didn't want their kids looking at them or looking at themselves feeling guilty because of ancestral traits. But they want us to get over slavery. Figure that one out. But again, going back to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she says, quote unquote, I did not seek this office to be the first in anything. I ran to make Arkansas first in everything. Arkansas is nearly dead last in almost every aspect when it comes to U.S. statistics. Good luck with that. She also sat there and says she actually signed an order, quote unquote, preventing the political indoctrination of Arkansas school children. As long as I'm governor, our schools will focus on the skills our children need to get ahead in the modern world, not brainwashing our children with a left-wing political agenda. You're going to hear Republicans say that a lot because their whole thing is, and I said it before, Republicans, conservatives love stupid people. Take that as you will. Conservatives love idiots. Idiots don't question. Idiots don't rock the boat. Idiots do what they're told. Idiots will vote because they feel, idiots will vote because they heard the word, figured it's like them, and will do it. They are button pushers. So what have conservatives figured out? If you take away education, you're going to create idiots. Don't believe me? Look at No Child Left Behind. I can tell you, if I can tell you off the bat, especially here in Tennessee, you're going to have a lot of people with challenging education, simply put, because they gutted education. See, that's what Republicans aren't saying at the moment. They are wanting to go after education, Social Security, the greatest hits. And they'll use every BS reason in the book. Moms for Liberty, for example, sat there, that group that is growing, unfortunately, with chapters in every state, actually will go after school boards to remove people who will not fit their agenda and put in people that will. You got to remember, in the South, most of these states have a law against CRT, which for reasons beyond my comprehension make no sense, considering that CRT has never been taught in schools. It's a law school. It's a law school class. So unless your child is an excellent genius and has somehow breezed their way through grades K through 12 and somehow found themselves in law school before they can actually drink, bravo. That's the only time they're ever going to learn about it. But Will, they're going to indoctrinate our children. You know the funny thing about conservatives, whenever they say something, ask them how. Ask them how, and then wait. Because most conservatives are not prepared for that question. You know, if you listen to people like Ben Shapiro, who believe in talking fast and talking loud enough and sounding with authoritative tone, makes you think that he knows what he's talking about. He's an idiot. Candace Owens, also an idiot. The three-headed dog at Fox News. I'm talking about Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, and of course, Sean Hannity. I call it the three-headed hydra at Fox News. All of them sound like idiots. Why? Because, again, people will go to what they familiarize themselves with. And this is why conservatives have realized, hey, if we sit there and tell them that the left wing, that we keep calling it left wing agenda, if we keep calling it indoctrination, if we keep calling it all these things, then guess what's going to happen? People are going to be like, well, I don't like what you're teaching at my schools. You guys heard me say this on this podcast all the time. Look at how they're attacking the schools, the libraries, the books, authors of color, or of sexual preferences, or of gender. You see what they did. See, the funny part is they will never take out Of Mice and Men, but they will take out Invisible Man by James Baldwin. They'll leave Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul because they believe it's the right book, but they will take out To Kill a Mockingbird because it deals with racism. Yes, that is the entire point of the book. They'll keep those feel-good stories in of Little House on the Prairie, but they will get rid of Flowers in the Attic. They will get rid of The Diary of Anne Frank. They will get rid of so many other. They will get rid of Twilight. They'll get rid of Harry Potter because it's in witchcraft, supposedly. This is what they do. This is why education is a great thing. I will fully admit that. I am a big fan of pushing education because it is woefully behind. America is woefully behind in education when it comes to the modern world. Do we need to revamp education? I believe it. Do I believe that education should be funded just as funded, if not twice as much as the military? Yes, fully do. Will it happen? No. Conservatives will do what they do best. They will sit there, they will gut it, they will starve it, they will remove everything from it. Why? Because they want to privatize it. Privatizing means funding, funding means ownership, and once education is owned privately, that is going to be the end of literal, conscious, critical process thinking as you know it. And Sarah Sanders is going to swear up and down the left wing is up to do something. Meanwhile, they're okay with Christianity being pushed in every school, but let a Muslim pray. Let a Satanist pray. Let a Satanist pray. Let anybody else outside of that wonderful Christian religion do something, and now all of a sudden, it's a problem. Mark my words on that. But move right along, guys. Another thing that has come up, just because, Republicans feel the need to say y'all too, because you got to remember, Trump right now is facing FBI scrutiny. Reason being, just because, he got caught with a boatload of documents he wasn't supposed to have, refused to give them back because he thought he could declassify them, and at the same time lied and actually had more documents he was hiding from another location on his Mar-a-Lago residence that he is now fighting the FBI over. But Republicans were like, "Oh, wait a minute!" And a former presidential, and a former, in the current president and his former offices, they had secret documents too. Why isn't he getting the same treatment as our former Lord and Savior, failed President Trump? Well, Biden had something to say about that.
People know I take classified documents and classified information seriously. When my lawyers were clearing out my office at the University of Pennsylvania, they set up an office for me, secure office in the Capitol. The 4 years after being vice president, I was a professor at Penn. They found some documents in a box in a locked cabinet, or at least a closet. And as soon as they did, they realized there were several classified documents in that box. And they did what they should have done. They immediately called the archives, turned them over to the archives, and I was briefed about this discovery and surprised to learn that there were any government records that were taken there to that office. But I don't know what's in the documents. My lawyers have not suggested I ask what documents they were. I've turned over the boxes. They've turned over the boxes to the archives, and we're cooperating fully with the review, and which I hope will be finished soon. And there'll be more detail at that.
So there you have it. Literally and figuratively, everything Joe just did, Trump could have done. Joe sat there and said, yes, my people discovered the documents. What did they do? Contacted the National Archives. Oh, and guess what? Gave them right back. No argument. No, I'm the former vice president. I can declassify this. I can keep these documents. It said nothing of the sort. It literally and figuratively said, literally, you heard Joe just say, the president Biden just say right now, we found them, we contacted them, we gave them back, we're cooperating. You don't hear any, this is a witch hunt, okay? This is a witch hunt. This is all it is. The government, the fake news is out to get me, okay? They're always out to get me. That's what Trump usually says. Somebody's always out to get him. He sounds like that one guy. Who Andrew Tate. He sounds like him. The Matrix has attacked me. He sounds like that guy. But Biden just did something simple. His people discovered it, alerted the National Archives, gave the documents back, cooperated in their investigation. 9 times out of 10 will be wrapped up, and it'll be like, okay, sorry, things happen. You didn't do anything stupid. There wasn't a breach. You gave it back. You cooperated with us. We got no issue with you. Imagine if the failure in chief in Florida did that. Instead of having to go out because he does what he does best. Trump will do what he does best. Deny, go in court, tie it up, run his money out. And I'm still trying to figure out who is giving this money. Then I realize, he's still grifting his flock. Because again, guys, All he had to do was get the documents back. Biden just did that, and he's having very little trouble. He is moving right along being the president. Meanwhile, Trump may be facing the violating the Espionage Act, which that comes with hefty penalties. But again, Trump's already facing a multitude of lawsuits in his stead, and if you're his lawyers, it is Christmas early from those billable hours. But I just find it interesting because Republicans are trying to make this, especially on Fox News, a Me Too moment when it's just like, no, it's not. Biden's not fighting. He's not trying to stand and say he can declassify evidence. He's not saying anything of the sort. He's simply giving them what they're asking for, cooperating and moving right along. Why in the world would that be an issue? Oh, right, because Republicans don't have anything else. Because I've been saying this, guys. I've been saying this before the midterms, during the midterms, and now after the midterms. Do you understand the level that Republicans have right now is next to nothing? I sat there and told you, once Republicans come into office, they're not going to do anything to help the American people. They're going to launch they're going to launch wasteful spending investigations. They've done it once. They'll do it again. Remember Benghazi? They went after Benghazi so many times, Hillary Clinton might as well have a hotel room at the U.S. Senate. Because, remember, Hillary Clinton was grilled countless hours over Benghazi. No indictments found. Donald Trump couldn't sit in a room with a special investigator for more than 10 minutes before he started whining and crying. And now, Republicans, now back in office, what are they going to do? Oh, we're going to investigate Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. We've notes on that laptop. We're going to investigate the Department of Justice and how they handled Donald Trump. We're going to investigate the FBI and the illegal raid of Mar-a-Lago. We are going to investigate Department of Homeland Security for how they're handling the immigration situation at the border. So what about your plan is to help the American people revitalize the economy, help stabilize our infrastructure, and bring back American jobs? No plans have been made. And yet, they've taken over the House. I will never understand that for the life of me. That I can sit here this entire time and say, name one conservative who has a plan that does not benefit corporations or rich people. None. They're too busy saying our spending, which is another thing that, again, you don't hear Republicans saying right now. You don't hear, well, that's not true. You might still hear it because we still have a Democratic president. But whenever there's a Republican president, you never hear, oh, we got to worry about the deficit. Oh, we're spending too much. Oh, what about the debt? Deficit, debt, and spending are three words you'll never hear during a Republican administration. But there are definitely three words that every Republican will say during a Democratic administration. Oh, we're spending too much. Oh, the debt ceiling. Oh, we need to cover our spending. We're on a spending spree. Now that they're in the House of Representatives, which can launch several investigations, you will hear a lot of that, and you will see a lot of time wasted. And again, I've always said this best: if we truly want to change how our government is ran, then I said it once and I'll say it again. Just to sum this up very nicely, there are 5 ways that you can honestly solve a lot of the problems in the U.S. Number 1, term limits on the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. It should be like the presidential. You can serve 2 consecutive terms. After that, you got to sit one out. I also believe that lifetime benefits for being a senator or representative should be struck. For example, why should I pay you $174,000 a year when you're no longer a senator or representative? Why should I pay you that? I mean, it's almost like I see why people get into politics now. It is literally the game that pays you to play. But again, like I said, term limits, that's one. Term limits on senators representatives, cutting off lifetime benefits. Because once you no longer work for the people, why should we pay you? Why should you get specialized health insurance? Why should you get security detail? Why should you still collect the salary long after you've left the House or the Senate? Why? For no reason. That's 2 things right there. Number 3, also, easily put, our U.S. military has to be held accountable for its budget spending. If it fails an audit, the budget must be cut. Now, that's not going to fly well with chicken hawks, aka Republicans, some moderate Democrats, but I truly believe it. Because keep in mind, guys, with the most recent debt ceiling, the U.S. military just got a budget increase. Meanwhile, education, social security, and other areas, agriculture, with the EPA and things of that nature, all are taking cuts. While we're just handing the U.S. military a bigger piece of the budget pie. And again, I said this once and I'll say it again. The U.S. Pentagon, since the 70s, has failed every audit. Every audit. And their current budgeting line can almost finance practically about 6 or 7 different countries at this rate. But again, nobody blinks an eye. So what did I just say? Term limits. I said term limits. I said cut off the lifetime benefits, cut the military budget in half. At the same time, give increases, and this might just be me. Institute a priority on where tax funding goes. Priority meaning that above all else, these things must be funded first. And I said it before, if you fund education, infrastructure, and my personal favorite, if you actually want to make things better, actually increase minimum wage. So those would be 3 things under priority that I sit there and say would work. Now, again, that's just 3 of 5. The other 2, which is going to be amazing to me, that a lot of people are not going to like, but I'm going to say that for another day. But just those 3 things alone would change our American government overnight. Will it happen? No, because again, when it comes to voting, this is where the Republicans, and this is where the Republicans and Democrats, it's not just one-sided, will sit there and say, well, we can't do that because that takes the power away from us. Well, you're there to represent us, which at this point seems to be failure. But I digress. Moving right along, though, guys, I am happy about this next story that we're talking about, but I'm also disappointed. Why? Because the former CFO of Trump's organization has been indicted and found guilty. The problem is, after decades of falsifying reports, decades of embellishing on values of land and real estate, after decades of doing this, the CFO gets only 5 months.
New York City tonight, the former CFO of the Trump Organization, Alan Weisselberg, has now been sentenced to 5 months at Rikers. It comes after Weisselberg pleaded guilty to devising a 15-year tax fraud scheme, evading nearly $2 million in taxes by taking pay in the form of rent, cars, and tuition for his grandchildren. He then testified against the Trump Organization, which was also found guilty of criminal tax fraud. Weisselberg, who is 75 and considered to be one of Donald Trump's most trusted employees, was handcuffed and taken immediately.
5 months. 5 months. So you're telling me this man for nearly 17 years ran the most corrupted organization out there, has sat there and testified against Trump Organization, was found guilty of all things, 5 months. But Will, he's 79. They threw the book at Bernie Madoff. Because I always say the best. It's like I use Bernie Madoff as a prime example. And what I mean by that is
more layoffs at Amazon.
Quiet you. Which we'll get to Amazon momentarily, but quiet you. But the thing is, this man, for nearly 17 years, ran the most corrupt organization out there. And at the same time, 5 months. This man will spend less time in jail than an 18-year-old with a marijuana possession in the same state. Make it make sense, because I think it's a tragedy. Now, unless the only thing that sticks out to me is that unless he has given, unless with his testifying, keep in mind he turned witness against Trump's organization. Unless he sat there and said, yes, Trump knew everything and I will testify to that, that is the only thing that will justify him getting only 5 months. Because that's the only thing I can think of. Because I would think for most tax evasion and crimes of that nature, they usually throw the book at you. Ask Bernie Madoff. But for 5 months? 5 months means to me that he must have said something. 5 months to me sounds like a deal. Although, like I said before, they're not interested in the CFO. They're interested in Trump. Now, again, Trump has multiple lawsuits. And if they do have multiple lawsuits, maybe, like I said, it only takes one. I said before, I'll say again, out of all these lawsuits, it only takes one to disqualify him from running in 2024. He already said he's running in 2024, but it only takes one of these lawsuits to basically find him guilty, and that's it. But if the Espionage Act gets him, he'll never see the outside for a very long time. But at first, when I read this, when I read this article and I looked at the video that the CFO of this organization is only getting 5 months, he must have said or had something that indicts Trump. We can wait and see. Personally, I'm ready for the popcorn. Moving right along, guys, as you probably heard, just because my system's acting a little funny today, Amazon, again, is in the news because, let's be honest, Amazon is the Walmart of the internet. We all use it, myself included. There is no way around it. Prices are good. You can get shipping. Amazon has infiltrated into many states, taking advantage of a lot of tax breaks, giving out a lot of jobs, swearing up and down they're the highest ones paying in the state for back-breaking algorithm. Try saying that 5 times fast. Algorithm-driven workloads that are beyond unreasonable. And with that being said, supposedly giving a business everything that it asks for and make sure it thrives, unfortunately, is not the case, as Amazon will be releasing a lot of jobs in the coming days. Just saying.
Turn now to news overnight about more layoffs at Amazon. 18,000 jobs. Our chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis, joins us to break down what the cuts mean for the job market and the economy. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning to you, Robin. And Amazon is one of the largest employers in the country, and they announced, as you say, overnight that they will cut more than 18,000 jobs. Salesforce also announcing its plans to eliminate 10% of its staff, impacting over 7,000 employees. And they both join a long list of tech companies, including Netflix, Facebook parent Meta, and Lyft, who started laying off employees last year. And there's a reason that so far this has mostly impacted the tech industry. These companies supercharged their hiring during the pandemic, envisioning a future where consumers would act the same, spend the same, and want to buy the same stuff, even if they were no longer stuck at home. And that is not the case, as you probably know as you're watching this. So far, we have not seen a major spillover impact into the broader economy. Jobs in other industries haven't suffered, but that's something that we're going to be watching for when the government releases its monthly jobs report.
Okay. So yes, Amazon will be in the coming days laying off 18,000 workers. Keep in mind, Amazon just last year laid off close to 10 to 15,000 workers. So we're now up to at least estimated 28,000 jobs lost. And again, this comes from the part to where we sat there and said, a lot of conservatives out there were all saying, well, if we give these job people all the benefits, all the tax breaks, they create jobs. The largest online e-retailer in the world just turned around and did another wave of layoffs. Make it make sense, conservatives. See, this is why I always sit there and say the whole Reaganomics thing, we're going to keep on filling up the top because eventually it has to spill over, trickle down economics. It's bullshit. It doesn't work. It's never worked. But conservatives will swear by the God that is Reagan that it works, and it doesn't. If anything, we should kind of be mad at Reagan because before Reagan decided to take a look at things, college used to be free. Yeah, you can go to college for free before Reagan. Before Reagan realized, we can't have too many progressive thinkers out there. What will that do for the future of the soul of America? We're going to have to start putting prices on this shit. That's what Reagan did. Reagan and his administration did. But what does that got to do with it? What does that got to do with conservatives? Conservatives will sit there and say, well, that's the cost of doing business. Conservatives will never admit, for the simple fact of the matter, that when it comes to pricing, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to companies out there, they literally don't know what they're doing. Look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk was touted as the smartest man in the world because for a lot of people didn't know, number one, he didn't start Tesla. He bought into it. As far as SpaceX, again, bought into it. And then $44 billion later, bought Twitter, and now Twitter is in shambles. and he is literally underwater, drowning in debt because he has to pay back what he's borrowed. But again, he's an example that billionaires are not intelligent. They just learn to work the room faster than anybody else. But when it comes to Amazon, you can't blame Bezos. Bezos is out, long gone. What it comes down to is that we found out that not even Amazon is safe from recession. And it all goes back to consumer spending. That's what it's always come back to. If consumer spending isn't high, everything else suffers. Commerce suffers, shopping, eating out, buying things, cars, clothes, computers, you name it. All that takes a hit. Why? Because our paychecks haven't increased. Prices at food stores have increased, prices on clothing, shoes, all the above. Baby formula, just to give you some relevance, has increased, but your paycheck is not. Minimum wage is still $7.29. In 2023, we haven't had a wage increase since 2009. So it's like, what more do you need to know that these companies like Amazon are all starting to feel it? And so what does Amazon do? Oh, we must keep our bonuses and keep our things for our shareholders. So let's get rid of the low-hanging fruit. Because you know why? Because come next quarter, there'll be a massive hiring again by Amazon. And because again, they're touting day one benefits, they're touting the highest pays in the state, wherever you may live. And for a lot of people, you gotta make the bills, you gotta meet the bills, you gotta keep that roof over your head, food in your place, especially if you have children. I get it. But what a lot of people don't get, and I've said this before, if you really want to change things, you have to give the money back to the people. Because unfortunately, our market is built on consumer spending. It always has been. It's never been anything else but a volatile market. But as long as that dollar keeps getting spent, nobody cares about the house of cards until all of a sudden one or two start falling over. That's all I'm saying. But again, wading through the mud with conservative guys, because like I said, you want to know what conservatives are doing. I wish I could make this up. Republicans, this 118 Congress hasn't even had the ink dried yet, and they're already doing stupid things. Like, for instance, that one Republican is filing articles of impeachment against the Department of Homeland Security secretary. Why, you may ask? Because for the handling of the Mexican border, Title 42, which was the Trump era border to actually deny asylum because of COVID, and of course the certain Muslim border, right? I'm not sorry, Muslim border. Excuse me. The Mexican border, where again we still have refugees that are coming in not only from Mexico but South America and up, claiming asylum from war-torn countries and getting either told or no or being held at the border. Or if you're Governor DeSantis or Greg Abbott, you're going to bust them to the vice president's home and Martha's Vineyard. Why? Because those are sanctuary cities. And as Governor Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott and a lot of people who have that same mindset think that we are not going to be sanctuary cities. Even in Tennessee, the idiot Governor Bill Lee said that Tennessee is not a sanctuary state. This is why I say Bill Lee needs to find a map. Because the only thing that Tennessee and Mexico have in common is who's got the hotter sauce. That's pretty much it. But again, it amazed me so that these individuals, these Republicans, are starting to come out and do stupid stuff. That they're going after the current Congress, or I should say, current Biden administrators, and trying to say we need to impeach him. Don't forget, Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to do articles of impeachment against Joe Biden for something that had nothing to do with him. Why? Because again, somehow Marjorie Taylor Greene got reelected. Whether it be crazies or people who believe in QAnon just as her, will do stupid stuff. This is why I say this is a dangerous time, because Republicans are not here for American people. They are here to disrupt, dismay, gut it out, and privatize everything, because that works out in their favor. But again, we shouldn't be surprised. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We don't even know what next week or what February is going to bring. But switching gears for a second, guys, I did want to talk about this because this is also a growing problem in the U.S. And you would think for us being a first world country that we shouldn't have water problems. But now we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it in Flint, Michigan. We're seeing it in Jackson, Mississippi. We're even seeing it now in Baltimore. And there's one commonality I want to point out after this video.
President Gloria Johnson, getting drinking water for her family is an ordeal.
I'm not trusting the water. I'm not comfortable with using it. I'm not comfortable with them drinking it.
Every month, the mother of two buys bottled water and boils gallons from the tap for her family to drink, cook, and brush their teeth.
It's frustrating because we got to keep up with this every single day on a daily basis.
That's because even though Baltimore's drinking water meets federal safety standards, according to the city's annual water quality reports, the water coming out of her tap is sometimes brown, which could be a sign iron is leaching from aging pipes. Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Michael Regan says Baltimore is one of countless communities across the U.S. grappling with aging water infrastructure as federal investment dwindled. Some experiencing water crises like Flint, Michigan, Jackson, Mississippi, and rural West Virginia.
Why has the U.S. government not done more, invested more in water infrastructure across this country?
You know, there are a lot of needs in this country. Unfortunately, we have waited too long. And there are certain populations in this country, Black and brown communities, tribal communities, low-income communities, that are seeing the worst aspects of this disinvestment.
In Baltimore, it's led to problems like sewer backups and skyrocketing water bills because utilities put repair costs on consumers. And last September, routine testing discovered E. coli in the drinking water at 3 locations in West Baltimore, a predominantly Black area, leading to a boil water advisory. In a hearing, the Department of Public Works said infrastructure failures were to blame.
It was a result of aging infrastructure.
But Matthew Garbarg, who oversees Baltimore's major infrastructure projects, says it's a multifaceted problem.
So are you saying what you're saying and what city officials saying are in line? They were sort of definitive in that hearing and saying aging infrastructure definitely contributed to it.
It is definitely something that is affecting our whole system. Whether that particular case was caused by the aging infrastructure, it's really hard to tell.
We've also talked to some Baltimore residents who say when they open up their tap water, it's brown. What's your message to those people?
That is a very, very concerning thing to see. The brown is a concentration of the iron. It technically is perfectly safe to consume. It's not attractive. And if you wash clothes with it, it will stain your clothes. So we understand that. Our message is call us. No one in our system should have to go out and buy bottled water.
Last year, Maryland received $144 million from the EPA as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, which set aside about $50 billion for drinking and wastewater improvements.
How much do you need the federal government to be a partner?
We need them desperately. We need to have our local, our state, and our federal partners all aligned.
Still, the $50 billion is not nearly enough. By the EPA's own estimates, the nation's drinking and wastewater infrastructure will require more than $744 billion over 20 years just to meet existing health and environmental standards.
The resources that we have from Bill are just a shot in the arm. There's a huge resource gap here.
A gap that people here are left trying to fill themselves.
We are really struggling. We're crying out for help.
Help the EPA says it's working to provide.
Water systems have been failing our communities. It's time for government to step up, and that's what we're doing.
As a mom, all I can do is be the best I can be.
Yamiche Alcindor.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there. Why? Because, again, I'm pretty sure you guys have come to this conclusion already, but I feel like I got to say it. Flint, Michigan, Jackson, Mississippi, Baltimore, Maryland. What do all these 3 places have in common? Predominantly black diversity areas, all having water issues. Now, again, if we're supposed to be working on infrastructure, as Biden was touting, I'm in full agreement of. I live in Tennessee. Let me tell you something if you guys don't know. In Kentucky, there is a dam called the Wolf Dam. Now, all Tennesseans know about the Wolf Dam just because that dam holds back a lot of water. Kentucky Lake, actually. So, in the event that that dam ever broke, Nashville's a pool. It's Nashville's low level valley. So, if the Wolf Dam in Kentucky ever broke, Nashville's a pool. And it wasn't too long ago that the Army Corps of Engineers was like, we probably need to fix this dam in case this thing actually breaks. Because there was some times where you can see water coming out of the dam and it's like, oh crap, this may actually happen. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because infrastructure is a big deal, not just in water, not just in electrical, not just in internet services, all the above. But where do you mostly see this? In diverse areas, which it's easily fixable. Which I know I know a lot of you guys are going, what do you mean it's easily fixable? Did you not hear did you not hear Will what they said? $744 billion. Yes. You want to know why I say it's fixable? $744 billion was given to the military in one bill alone. Nearly that amount that the U.S. military has received. Keep in mind, the U.S. military has received $1 trillion in funding. Trillion with a T. And you're telling me that the EPA said in order to fix the nation's infrastructure on wastewater and drinking water and those systems all combined will take nearly $744 billion? Why has that not been brought up? I know, again, Biden, when he was running a progressive agenda, really was pushing this, because I would think we keep talking about America needing a renaissance, if you will. We keep saying that. Sound like a perfect renaissance to me. Spend the next 10 to 20 years upgrading America. We need plumbers. We need electricians. We need welders. We need construction workers. And to think that right there is the missing market that America needs, not being touted. Why is that? I mean, we need steel, we need wood, we need concrete. All these things would open up these markets and repairing America, not just the water, not just the wastewater drinking systems, but the bridges, the roads, buildings. I'm pretty sure in almost every part of America, you're probably going to find one or two roads that need to be repaired from potholes, because we are all tired of seeing them. I know in Tennessee we are. But it amazes me so that this is not being pushed. I hate to see families like that, where again, when you're stuck paying a utility bill and you're not getting what you paid for, you're getting paid with dirty water, and they're trying to tell you, well, technically you can drink it. I would be like that guy in Jackson, Mississippi, where he literally brought a bottle of that water to the meeting, put it in front of the city legislature and say, you drink it. I would love to be that guy, because they always kill me when they sit there and say, oh, well, I mean, it's technically safe. It's not safe, especially when you're a parent. When you're a parent, you have kids, safety is priority. And you're not going to convince parents that it's okay to drink water with a little bit of brown in it. That's why they're boiling the water. That's why they're buying bottled water, which is amazing, because, well, nobody shouldn't have to buy bottled water. Yes, they do. Why do you think bottling companies are making billions off this? Why do you think companies that bottle water are having record-breaking profits right now? It's all connected. When there is a crisis, bottled water gets purchased. When there's natural disasters, bottled water gets purchased. When going back to Flint, Michigan, where the government purchased bottled water to give to its citizens, somebody had to pay the bill in order to get the water there. So not only on top of that I'm paying for dirty water, which again, if you guys haven't noticed, them utility bills are spiking high. People in Houston are still fighting that, but still fighting electricity, because again, Texas is on its own grid. Figured that one out. And now you have Jackson, Mississippi, which again we talked about. We talked about those guys fighting water bills that are coming in at $2,000, $3,000, as high as almost $8,000. Because how is it legal? How is it constitutional? How is it legal that utility companies can push on the cost of repair to their consumers? A city mandated utility is somehow charging its constituents for its repairs. And if constituents are paying for repairs, why hasn't the water services improved? That's the question I would ask. But again, I feel like this would be a perfect time. I'll even give the Republicans this. I know it won't happen, but I'll give the Republicans this. If Republicans turn around and sit there and say, we need to institute a bill yesterday to get this money out to repair America's infrastructure, even from a conservative's mouth, with that bill doing exactly that, very few people would argue. I don't expect that from them. But in the event that it did happen, I mean, hell would freeze over, yes, but I'd be more inclined to listen to them. But the problem is, it is amazing how these problems are so apparent, and that if we're able to give Ukraine money, keep in mind, we gave Ukraine nearly $45 billion in foreign aid. We still give Israel, we still give the holy city of Jerusalem, Israel, we still give them sons of bitches $30 billion every now and then. We still give foreign aid out, and yet our own people are suffering. But politicians only listen to you when it comes to midterms and administrations. See, this is why I know off the bat, when it's me, if I ever had the chance to actually speak to an elected official, I know I would have to cuss, but I would ask them straight. I would ask them the hardest questions. Like, for example, if I ever got the chance to interview Governor Bill Lee, I would ask him, what measures do you think actually help Tennessee? And look at him trying to figure out something positive, because there is nothing positive from his administration. But keep in mind, this is simple. America's infrastructure needs to be upgraded. Jobs and funding can fix that and turn our economy around. The problem is, why isn't nobody talking about it? But speaking of things they are talking about, because we all know, speaking of student loans, Biden's student loan plan is in flux as it's going to get heard from by the Supreme Court. But at the same time, they are the Biden administration, along with the Department of Education, are suggesting a different alternative to the ongoing problem. And yes, somehow, some way, they still think this is a good idea.
Biden administration pushing forward to change federal student loan regulations. It is announcing a new plan that would lower or pause payments for some Americans.
Joining us now, CNBC Tech co-anchor Deirdre Bosa. Deirdre, good to have you with us. So how do these proposed changes differ from the administration's student loan forgiveness plan? We heard so much about that, watched a lot unfold, but currently it's being held up by the Supreme Court.
Yeah, good question. Now, the justices, they are considering the administration's effort to cancel up to $20,000 in student debt for some borrowers. The rule announced today affects the income-driven repayment plans that limits monthly payments based on how much money the borrower is earning. Now, in general, it would lower or even eliminate those payments for people enrolled in the plans and forgive the balance of loans entirely after 10 years. So that's a reduction from the current 20-year limit. The bottom line here, guys, some community college students, they won't have to make any payments at all.
Okay, so before we get to that story, guys, and apologize, my system is kind of fighting me today. So yes, this is Biden's next plan, since his student loan plan is being held up by lawsuits being heard by the Supreme Court. They have decided that, along with the Department of Education, that income-driven repayment loans, as they have stated, if you know what they are or don't know what they are, pretty much it's a way of actually battling student loan debt. Again, it is based on your income. You can pay as little as $50 a month. You may be paying on the high side $50 to $200 a month, depends on where your income is. So they're figuring out that, okay, we're going to try to lower that to where either you're paying very little or pay none at all, which on paper sounds great. But you know what else sounds great? Just cancel the debt. Just cancel it. And I say this all the time because a lot of people go, well, I went to college, I took out loans, I worked a job, I busted my butt and I was able to pay it off, or my parents had money, or I got left to trust, or I had an asset that I could sell and I got myself out of debt. Why can't you? Because we're not you. We're not in the same situation. That's why. If you're able to pay off your student loan debt, I'm not knocking you. Bravo, great for you. But there's still 20 plus million Americans out there who will probably never see the end of the light of the tunnel, because again, student loan debt is not just debt. It is a albatross, because it ties in your debt to income ratio. For all those that are fans of credit and credit scores, you have heard debt to income ratio a lot. And if student loans takes up a majority of that, it prevents you from doing a lot of things. Prevents you from getting a car, prevents you from getting a job, prevents you from owning a home, has you stuck in an endless cycle of paying only the interest and not the principal, so you may never see the light of day. Student loans is a predatory system that for some odd reason still goes unchecked. But with Biden's plan, though, yes, on paper it sounds great, but I had to ask this question: why, after 10 years that you have to roll around. 10 years, you know what that sounds like? I'm not gonna lie. 10 years of paying on an income-based student loan for 10 years that the rest of your debt gets forgiven. So for 10 years, you're making payments, but why does that sound like bankruptcy with payments? That's what that sounds like to me. That sounds like, for all those that don't know, bankruptcy in its entirety means that you write off all your debts, but for 7 years or 7 or 10 years, depending on which chapter bankruptcy you file, it's like getting the scarlet letter on your chest that anybody that ever runs your credit sees bankruptcy. Oh, so you had a discharge bankruptcy, huh? Whenever you hear that, you might as well go ahead and walk out wherever you at. You ain't getting it. Car, house, whatever, you're not getting it. But that's what it feels like. But for 10 years of paying off student loans on an income-driven base plan, the debt gets forgiven. I've never understood why 10 years. Why should you have to make somebody walk that long walk for 10 years and it goes nowhere? That's what I really want to know. But don't get me wrong, I'm not mad about this plan. That yes, there are some students, there are some people, some former students who have student loan debts may have low payments, may not have payments at all. That's all well and great. But I go back to my original position I had about this when Biden did finally say he was going to do something. There are multiple PPP loans out there that have been taken by individuals, corporations, and those who are way more well off than me. All of them, well, not all of them, that's wrong. A good majority of them got forgiven, even by those who had the ability to pay it off. And I said this once, and I'll say it again. If PP loans can be forgiven, please explain to me why student loan debt isn't the same. Because the only difference between PPP loans and student loan debt is the banks that actually gave these students those college loans finance the conservatives to sit there and say, no, we can't allow this to happen. They also finance some Democrats to sit there and say, no, we shouldn't allow this to happen. PPP loans were instituted by the government. And all of a sudden, those that took out PPP loans, forgiven. And some of them, multiple. And the PPP loans were not designed for what they were. As people said, well, we just want to keep people paid, keep businesses open. Really? Businesses recorded record profits with PPP loans. It wasn't about keeping the people. It was about keeping the profits. But again, Biden, as much as you keep on saying you're hopeful about your plan and trying to make adjustments, trying to help the American people, do the right thing. Cancel the debt. Again, PPP loans get forgiven all the time. Why can't student loans? All I'm saying. But let's go ahead and get to this story because, again, this is what scares me as a firearms owner. And this is also why I'm highly against training some children against firearms. Why? Because I wouldn't want any teacher to be in this situation with a 6-year-old.
Hospital bed Monday, recovering from a gunshot wound. First grade teacher Abigail Zwerner had one pressing question.
Do you know how my students are? She was worried about them.
Zwerner hailed a hero. Police say during classroom instruction Friday, a 6-year-old student drew a 9mm handgun and fired a single round. The bullet went through Zwerner's hand and struck her in the chest.
She suffered a gunshot wound, but she was still able to get all of her students out of that classroom. Mrs. Zwerner was the last person to leave that class.
Police say the 6-year-old brought the gun to school from home, the firearm legally purchased by his mother. The child now receiving treatment in a medical facility. Administrators back to the drawing board on safety protocols for lower schools.
I'll be honest, who would be prepared for a 6-year-old to bring a loaded weapon onto school or a weapon onto school and shoot their teacher?
Rich Neck Elementary will remain closed for the remainder of the week. Parents, grandparents, and faith leaders visiting campus, still processing the shock.
I've been good up until this moment. Now it's surreal.
An outpouring of concern for a heroic teacher and the little ones left to heal.
To have something like this, a safe place where kids are supposed to run with their friends, where they're supposed to pass notes in school, that's the kind of darkness they should have had to deal with.
When pressed about whether the child's parents will face charges, investigators said that will be determined by the facts of the investigation.
The facts of the investigation. Something tells me that kid is definitely a rice cake warrior. But no, it's the whole thing, guys. Again, nobody ever expects this. But here's what I say. And again, before gun nuts or homosexuals get their panties in a twist, I'm a gun owner, okay? But I also worry. Number one, I always worry about safety. My firearms are always out of kids' reach where they can't get to it no matter what, because I check on it as routinely as you should. But there are a lot of people out there that believe that we should train our children on firearms. I'm against it. Why am I against it? Exhibit A, as I point to the door and I mean to point to the other monitor. I point to the other monitor as Exhibit A. A 6-year-old with their mother's gun went to school and shot their teacher. Yes, the parents should be liable. The parents should be liable. Your child somehow got out of your house with your gun and shot a teacher. Yes, you should be liable. You are criminally liable. But at the same time, I would bet money, they haven't said it yet, but my money is that 6-year-old's been that child was being trained. And that's my thing. Kids should know. I mean, kids play a lot of things these days. Kids, especially when they have devices, VR systems, video game systems. I get it. But there are a lot of parents out there who believe that their kids should be taught gun safety. I am against it, because I do believe that gun safety should be taught, not to kids. Why? Kids don't make rational decisions. They don't. And I say this all the time because you got to think knowledge is just as dangerous as a weapon, because whoever is wielding that knowledge can be helpful or can be dangerous. In my opinion, teaching gun safety to kids is dangerous. Why? Because now that child is armed with knowledge. Now that child may know the location of something. Now that child, because of someone else's neglect and someone else's lack of responsibility, could possibly lead to injury or another person's loss of life. So yes, the mother and father should definitely be held accountable, 100% so. Because just like the superintendent said, it's one thing to prepare for shooters coming on campus, but what if the shooter's 6 years old? Nobody. I mean, unless you're going to put a metal detector and start scanning kids with metal detectors, under 6 years old coming into school, how else will you know what they're carrying? Because that's what it is. It's as a person that does security and risk all the time, the one thing that I keep on saying, you can be prepped for everything, but you can't be prepared for everything, because you cannot account for any and all situations. You can only do the best you can and mitigate the rest. And nobody would have expected a 6-year-old to come packing and shoot a teacher. Nobody. But at the same time, I'll be looking at that 6-year-old and I'll be looking at those parents, because somewhere along the lines, a lot of balls got dropped. But again, wouldn't be surprised that 6-year-old, because again, they didn't release his name. He's a minor. They can't report it. But I'll bet money he is every bit the opaque group that I believe he or she may be a part of, because they didn't say it was a he or a she. But we'll follow that story as it develops. The last story I got, guys, before we get to our feel good segment, I keep telling you guys all this, that when it comes to jobs, yes, there are plenty of jobs out there, but the thing about it is those jobs don't have the wages that a lot of people expect. So therefore, people are finding bigger things. I told you guys it was going to affect all job markets. And again, we see another strike in a spot where we absolutely positively cannot afford to have a strike. But for these women and men in this profession, I understand.
Nurses from 2 New York City hospitals have now walked off the job. Contract talks broke down between the hospitals and the New York State Nurses Association. The strike is forcing the hospitals to divert ambulances, to transfer patients, and to postpone non-emergency surgeries. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hillier joins us now from outside one of those hospitals. Vaughn, talk to us about what's at the heart of this strike.
Right here, and the strike went into effect at sunrise here this morning, impacting about 7,000 nurses who have now walked off the job, not only at this hospital here on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, but also a hospital in the Bronx here. This is, when you're talking to the nurses, it's not about the money. It's not about compensation, but in such a large part, it is about the staffing issues that are at play here. And when you're talking to the nurses, they say that there are anywhere from 6, 7, 8 patients assigned to any one nurse at a time, and that it is adding stresses to their abilities to provide the appropriate patient care. Take a listen to the head of the Nursing Association just earlier today.
Nurses don't want to strike. We would rather be inside, taking care of the patient, but safely, in a safe manner, not the condition they have us working for the past 5, 10 years. Enough is enough, Sinai. Enough is enough.
Now, Mount Sinai Hospital here in Manhattan says that they have offered the nurses what they say is a good deal. The governor of New York said that there should be an arbiter that comes in and works with the two sides. The Nurses Association turned down that offer and that suggestion from the governor. Right now, it appears that this is going to be potentially hours or even days ahead before these two sides come to an agreement.
And that's what I wanted to ask you next, Vaughn. I mean, do we have a sense of how long this strike might actually last, or where the negotiations can quickly go from here?
The struggle is that these negotiations have been going on for weeks here, and they even went way into the deep hours of the early morning here today. And, to a certain extent, surprising folks that ultimately it came to this. I was talking to one nurse who has been a nurse for 41 years here in New York City. She said this is her first time in her life that she has gone on strike. The Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, was out here on the side of the nurses. This is at a standstill, and right now they are actually pushing patients outside of these hospital units as these negotiations continue.
Vaughn Hilliard for us here in Manhattan. Vaughn, thank you.
So yeah, it was going to affect nurses sometime. Now we did cover stories last year where nurses did go on strike in different states. This one being in New York City with Mount Sinai, one of the biggest hospital systems in New York City, and the fact that 7,000 nurses are going on strike means that yes, doctors are going to be overwhelmed. Traveling nurses may be called in for big bucks, but patients may suffer because, again, I don't blame nurses. It is amazing that with nurses, doctors, first responders, we hailed them during the COVID times, heavy COVID times. We're still in a pandemic, but we hailed them for going into work, trying to, keep themselves sane, help out patients, at the same time not lose their minds. We hailed them as heroes, but it's amazing that we never pay them as well. It's amazing that we don't. And I don't blame these nurses because, again, I have people in my life that are wanting to go into nursing. Nursing, to me, is probably one of the most honest professions you can be a part of, next to be an educator. Because, again, those two professions have in common that, yes, they affect people. Yes, they affect lives, and they are not being paid well. They are not being paid well enough. They're not. For what they're being asked to do, for the shifts they cover, they are not being paid enough. And that is the truth. So I cannot blame these nurses for going on strike. And it's amazing where they say, we gave these people exactly everything that
Making some resolution.
Sorry, guys. My system is fighting me today. But it's amazing where the opposite side turns around and says, oh, well, we gave these people everything, and so it shouldn't be an issue, right? Shouldn't be an issue. Because they believe what they feel. See, it's always interesting. And for all those who are employers and run companies, if you ever fall upon this podcast, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It is amazing what you think is fair is really unfair or insulting to your workers. When you think, oh, I'm going to give you a 50-cent raise or a 10% or a 5% raise, that's taxes. No jive. When I was working help desk at IT, I had a manager turn around and tell me, well, we're going to pay you $1.50 more. After a year of working weekends, clearing out areas that I didn't have to be in, dealing with users that did not know a keyboard from a mouse, dealing with corporate executives who couldn't work projectors in conference rooms, dealing with equipment that was older than dirt, doing modifications that, technically we should have been paid for doing because of our skill set. And at the same time, trying to keep our heads with every pizza party because they thought that was great for literally company morale. And during my performance evaluation, $1.50 is what this company thought of me. To pay me $1.50 more, pat me on the head, and say, "Good boy." Not a dog. That's what made me think. That's what made me think differently about IT help desk so long ago. But at the same time, I see that with the nurses. Think about that in the nursing profession. You are asked to work 12, 14-hour shifts, deal with patients and their families, deal with doctors, deal with trying to get processing done, dealing with 100 different things. And at the end of the day, you decide to go lay your head down for a few hours just to turn around and do it all over again. Imagine you're an educator, that you have a classroom of children whose parents may or may not be involved in their lives. Kids who are unruly, disrespectful, or maybe respectful. Kids with learning disabilities that you wish you give more time to, but you have to give more, but you have to give equal. You try to give equal time to everybody. Dealing with the school system, dealing with the principal, dealing with pay, dealing with sick kids. At the same time, if you're a teacher yourself that has a family, you got the other side of it too. Only to turn around and lay your head down for a few hours and then get back up and do it all over again. The bottom line is, along with educators, first responders, and a lot of these jobs out here, people are simply not getting paid enough. And if they were getting paid enough, you wouldn't complain. This is why I say before we get the feel good segment, everybody says, I heard this all the time, money doesn't bring you happiness. Really? Show me an unhappy person that doesn't have financial problems. You'll be hard pressed to find them. But moving right along, guys, we're going to go into our feel-good segment because usually how the fact we got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom and sometimes make you lose your faith in humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday, it's hump day. We're going to try to get you over the hump to Friday, which is Thursday, hopefully with this new feel-good segment, because again, I love to see the impact where people really do try to use certain things to reach people, especially kids. And this young woman we're about to show should definitely get her flowers.
Many of us are making some resolutions to get in shape. For kids, exercise needs to be fun, and youth boxing coach Jackie Atkins right here, she knows how to do just that. But I know that you think that you're here to show us some workout moves, but a little bit of an untruth here, okay? Because Megan over here is going to tell us the real reason.
I am. That's right, Jackie. Now, you run an after-school program, and it is called New Jersey Give a Kid a Dream. It uses boxing lessons to give kids a safe and rewarding place to get fit, build confidence, and also do some homework together. Now, this segment is sponsored by Netspin, which has been so inspired by how you've given back to your community that we've joined forces to honor you. Jackie, let's take a look.
Before you were getting bullied. So what's going on now with the bullying?
They're not hurting me anymore.
Boxing scares away the bullies, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Coach Jackie is on a mission to make kids champions of life.
Who are we?
She takes kids who are from underserved communities and who are lacking discipline and skills and teaches them life skills through boxing.
Trading her corporate job for boxing gloves to run New Jersey Give a Kid a Dream at Gleason's Jersey Shore Boxing Gym.
Coach Jackie has a way of transferring kids from legal issues, social problems, into a nice style of really believing in themselves.
Once they come here, it's like you could just see the peace come over them. And as we call her, she's an angel, kind of working, around us.
No child is turned away, coming into spar, punch, and jab 3 to 4 times a week free of charge.
Let's go, rock it right to the bell.
With Coach Jackie's discipline and dedication, the boxing ring has become a safe haven, instilling confidence and investing in these young athletes' success.
When I first came into the gym, I was going through an extremely hard mental battle with myself. I was in serious therapy, and every time I came through the door and saw Coach Jackie, all those problems, nothing else mattered.
When I was matched with the internship, I was very angry going through the motions of just life. Like, this place gave me a purpose. Jackie gave me a purpose.
When I first started, it was only a year since my father passed away. I was 12 years old. But this was my escape, and I was insecure at that time, and I'm not insecure anymore. I'm pretty confident in myself and who I am.
Coach Speedy ran into trouble as a teen, eventually meeting Coach Jackie and never looking back, now training these young athletes.
If it wasn't for Coach Jackie, I'm not sure exactly where I'd be. Maybe jail. It's hard to even imagine what it would be like without her.
Thank you for molding me into the young man that I am today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Jackie.
Coach Jackie, oh, you are in tears right now. And let's go ahead and bring in a group of people who have been waiting backstage all morning long for you. We've got young people from the gym right here, members of the board, and they are bringing you those golden gloves. They wanted to be here to celebrate this moment and make it so special for you.
Wow, guys.
And Anthony, you're a member of New Jersey Give a Kid a Dream. We just heard what it was like for you to go to the gym. What impact has this had on your life?
Give a Kid a Dream and boxing in general has had a huge impact on my life. I went from a kid that was severely depressed and upset all the time to having multiple sponsorships and being very successful. And I want to thank Coach Jackie because she severely, since I was a little baby, changed my life and molded me into the man I am till today. So on behalf of all of us and all the people that you've changed their lives, thank you.
Jackie. And
That's not all. That's not all.
That's my favorite line, Gio. That's not all, Jackie. We have another big surprise, okay? Our sponsor, Netspin, loves to help people build a better financial future by delivering a wealth of kindness. They were so inspired by your story. They're giving you $10,000 to continue helping kids achieve their dreams. Congratulations, Coach Jackie. Here you go. Hold the big check. Hold the big check.
Oh, we got the balloon.
Yes.
I know. We just surprised you. You're really surprised.
I was ready to work out.
You were ready to work out. She was asking me before we started this segment. She said, "Are you ready to work out?" I was like, "Yeah, we're throwing some punches."
Do you see my workout gear, Jackie?
What does this mean to you? Did you realize how much you've touched the lives of so many people?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, that my children tell me every day. They reinforce it, and they give me the reason for doing this. So I thank you guys. Thank you. Love you guys.
Coach Jackie, it's such a pleasure to have you here. It's such a
Wow.
pleasure to meet you. Thank you all for being here. Congratulations again, and let's keep it going.
All right, so that guy's right there. Like I said, you love to see it. You just love to see it. There's no other way I can put that, just to actually see good things happen to people, and that right there, I could watch that stuff all day. So I just love to see people actually have an impact on other people, and that's that's the tearjerkers right there. That gets that Denzel glory tear that comes down when he getting whipped. I know it's a terrible segue, but that's kind of how it feels. Anyway, that's going to do for this podcast, guys. Thank you for all watching, for liking, for letting people know it's live. I certainly appreciate that. Before we do get out of here, guys, some shameless plugging. I do want to first and foremost shout out my boy Vaughn, Big BZA Dot. You can usually find him, Big BZA Dot, in all socials. Check out his TikTok. Check out his YouTube page where he does have beats for sale. So definitely check him out there. Of course, yours truly, guys. My social on most things is BlackFox447. You can follow me there as I usually post. I review everything that I watch, listen to, and play and gym stuff because sometimes I do a couple push-ups. At the same time, guys, the link at the bottom to make that just a wee bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, it'll take you to my link tree that has the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, the Offense Podcast. Definitely like, share, subscribe, let people know about it. That is all I ask. Aside from that, guys, as we are getting toward MLK holiday, let's also remember one of the leaders of the civil rights movement. So, hey, take that time to relax, take that time to reflect, take that time to learn. Like I said, it's not always about work. I mean, we hear about work-life balance all the time, but take some time out for yourself. Take a day to relax, to unwind, decouple from the world for a little bit. However you choose to do it. No judgment. That's all I'm saying. Beyond that, if you are going to be traveling, guys, again, as I've noticed, the masks are back out. We apparently are cropping back up again. We've always been in a pandemic, but with COVID and its variants, RSV, and multiple other things going on out there, if you are traveling, you're going to be in high traffic areas, I highly recommend to wear a mask. recommend to wear a mask. If you feel sick, stay home, because right now we're trying to get these numbers down. And the only way we can get these numbers down, guys, is simply put, we have to protect ourselves. We protect ourselves, we protect others. That's simply put. And before I get to the end, guys, I do have a wish for this year, for 2023. I wish for us to come together. I wish for us to unify. I wish for us to push each other. I wish for us to encourage each other. I wish for us to inspire each other. I wish for us to be better than what we were in 2022. And I'm not just talking my people of melanin. Everybody else can join the cookout too. Just simply put, as I usually say about following me, you can join, you can converse, you can talk. Simply put, don't be a creeper. We'll all be cool. Last thing I'll say about how Frack we got here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We are simply giving you all the information, allowing you to make up your own mind, but we provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better in society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first Black woman Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black 4-star military general in the armed forces. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up with your paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will all get through this. Peace.